you're seeking freedom in a marble mansion,
oh, if you're seeking freedom, you won't find it there.
For even when it's sunny, you'll be counting money. Keeping up that show keeps your face lined with care. And if you're seeking freedom on a throne of power,
oh, if you're seeking freedom, you won't find it there.
For though men all obey you, what if they betray you? Hence you be and waiting for foes everywhere. But if you're seeking freedom, cast away desires.
Why bark like a beggar, look wealth everywhere?
For never can you buy it, grasp and you deny it. Freedom can be hoarded, it's free as the air. And if you're seeking freedom, seek it on the mountains. Got sunlight on your shoulders, the wind in your hair. For there's no one can hold you, force about or mold you. Once your heart is free, you'll be king everywhere. For there's no one can hold you, force about or mold you. Once your heart is free, you'll be king everywhere.
Thank you very much, Joe, and welcome to all of you who are joining us here this morning for this discussion on the topic of karma and reincarnation. I'd like to bow to my guru, my teacher, Swami Kriyananda, and ask their blessings and their presence here joining us this morning. Joe, in his introduction, was saying that it's true. I did meet Swami Kriyananda in 1968, and very quickly I was attracted to him immediately, and my life changed. Think back in your own life. I assume most of you are over the age of 22, but you'll get there if you're not. But there's a time in your life where you graduate from school, and you're thinking, what is my life? Where am I going? What's my career? What should I do with my life? And your family has pressure on you from one direction, and your friends are saying something else, and life tends to take you pushing you in one direction or another. And I was at that point. You think back, perhaps many of you also were at that point at some time in your life. And I met Swamiji, and my life took a radical turn. And I decided at that time to dedicate my life to these spiritual teachings. I discovered something that I felt was true. I felt something finally resonated with me that I wanted to pursue with all my heart. Not half-hearted. I wanted to go all my heart. But I have to say that Joe mentioned one thing in his introduction. It wasn't quite true. He said, I immediately felt that impulse to not only dive deep in these teachings, but to share them with others. Well, that wasn't quite true. Yes, the first part was, but the second part of sharing them with others took a little bit of time. I didn't see the necessity for that. And it reminded me of a story that Swami Kriyananda told, that when he met Paramhansa Yogananda told him that his job in life, his future in life, was to write, to lecture, of course to meditate, find God, and also to share these teachings with others. And Swami Kriyananda was a little bit reluctant about that, taking a public role. And Master, as we call Paramhansa Yogananda Master, told him, he says, well, you better get used to it, because that's what you're going to have to do. And in a sense, I've always felt many of us who come to these teachings, we want the divine. It's a divine search, and we want God for ourselves, but we learn very quickly. If you want something, that's fine, but if you truly want to feel joy, if you truly want that, you have to share also with others. And this is a basic principle that we learn on the spiritual path, that we cannot keep it all for ourselves, that in the process of sharing with others, there's a great joy that comes in that, and we feel ourselves to be instruments for the divine. And you'll find this true in your own life. And I recommend to you, you think in whatever way that you in your own life, you can share whatever bliss, whatever benefits come to you, whatever blessings come to you. Don't hold them for yourself. Share with other people and you'll find your life transformed. And in this process, you'll see that some remarkable things begin to happen to you. And particularly, this is important for this topic that we're going to be speaking about today, which is karma and reincarnation. Karma and reincarnation. Now, Paramhansa Yogananda used to rail at people. He would criticize others. He said, people, they talk about karma, karma, karma. Why my karma? And Yogananda would say that he was tired of hearing people talk about karma in that way, because it presented an attitude that, oh, if only my karma was different, that somehow things would work out better for me. And haven't we actually, I think all of us, I certainly myself, haven't we all, when we looked at our lives saying, oh, I wish my karma was different than it was. Oh, why do I have to have this karma? Why is it this way or that way? But all of us, we have this particular karma. And I'd like to ask you the question, when we talk about karma, which we're going to do today, what is good karma? What is bad karma? Is it my good karma to be here today? Certainly, I think it is. It's my good fortune. I started by saying that it's my good fortune to be here, to be able to share with you. Now, when I was 22, I would have thought, oh, that's bad karma. I tended toward being seclusive type, you see, wanting to stay by myself and meditate and not go out. But is that good karma or bad karma? We look at our karma, and we have to ask ourselves, what is good karma? Look at your own life. And I have noticed that people think of good karma as those things in life that conform to their likes and dislikes. I like it, therefore it's good karma. I don't like it, therefore it's bad karma. But is that really true? Is it really true? Is that really what good karma and bad karma is? The masters say that karma is neither good nor bad. It's just karma. It's just karma. But what is it that we really want in life? We want to be free. We want God. We want happiness. We want to be joyful in life. We want life to be successful. Now, not just successful in the material plane. We want it to be spiritually successful. We want to ultimately, what we want is we want freedom. Isn't it so? We want to be free in this life. And so if you were to say, what is good karma? Good karma are those things that come to you that are going to take you in the direction that your soul really wants to go. Those things that take you in that direction are good for you. Those things that take you away from what your soul really wants in life, those are the bad karmas. And most people, I have noticed, are not very good at judging. They're not very good at judging. They tend to think, oh, it's bad karma, it's good, or maybe they win the lottery, or they win the whatever it might be, and they say, what good karma? Of course, what happens a year later, they may have been terrible for them to be able to have that so-called good fortune. So karma is that which takes us in the direction that our souls really want to go. There was a famous scientist, statesman in American history. His name was Benjamin Franklin. And he said something that I think is universally true. He had a bit of a sense of humor. He says there's only two certainties in life: death and taxes. Now, he could have said, I was the humorist, and he could have said death and karma. And he wouldn't have been, by saying taxes, he wasn't that far off. Because, in a sense, taxes meaning that, in an expanded sense, there is nothing free in life. There's a saying, there's no free meals in life. We think it's free, but there are consequences to everything that we do in life. We think the criminal thinks that, oh, if I just pick your pocket, you don't know about it, he somehow is getting away with something. And in some little way or another, we do many things in life. Well, it's not going to matter. But there are consequences to everything we do. So Swami Kriyananda once asked Paramhansa Yogananda, he says, when Yogananda explained to him that karma rules in every aspect of our life, and even in the little things, it has to be, you might say, repaid. We have to pay the price. And Swami Kriyananda says, is that so, sir? Even a wish for an ice cream cone? And Yogananda says, oh yes, even that has to be fulfilled in some day. Karma rules, and we have to pay the price of that. Or we have to pay the cost, you might say. And so when we look at our life, we have to ask ourselves, why this karma? What is good karma? How do we overcome that karma? And how do we expiate that karma? And this is what I'd like to speak a little bit about today. As I said, the rule of karma is the cosmic, you might say it's the cosmic law. Everything obeys that law. And I think it's helpful because people can see that when we look at science and we see action, reaction. You put something in motion and you can see how the reaction takes place out on the physical world. But what about something more subtle? How does it apply to more subtle aspects of our life? Well, Swami Kriyananda once explained, he says, it's good to think of karma in this way. Thoughts, too, have their karma, because thoughts also are things. Thoughts are things. That they're not just ephemeral concepts. When you think about something, what you're doing is you're expressing an aspect of consciousness. Consciousness in thought, there's consciousness in energy, consciousness in action, and thought too is an aspect of consciousness. And when you back that thought with willpower, it begins to turn into energy. You apply it, that thought, in some way. So it too has reaction to it. That energy then goes out and manifests in some sort of outward action. So everything, thought, energy, plans, all of them in one fashion or another generate a reaction to it. It's the cosmic principle of this world that goes out. Now, I used to think when I first thought about this concept, what is it? Why can't I put something in motion? Why does it come back to me? The pickpocket takes your wallet, but why does that come back to him? Why doesn't it, maybe that person reacts, he loses his wallet, but why does it come back to me? And the way the masters express this is that karma is action and reaction, but what brings it back to you, thoughts, action, energy, and motion, it revolves around the pole of the individual being identified with this body, the pole of ego. Saints themselves act in this world, but they don't necessarily have karma. It doesn't come back to them. There was a story from the life of Lahiri Mahashaya, who was the guru, the Param Guru of Paramhansa Yogananda. He lived in Varanasi, Benares at that time, 19th century, and he would go every day to the river to bathe in the river. And on the way back, every morning he'd come back after bathing. And one day he went to the river with one of his disciples, and he was bathing in the river. And on the way home, he told his disciple, he says, "Oh, please, tear a piece of cloth from your dhoti." I'm going to need it. And very soon. And the disciple thought he didn't obey. He didn't understand what the Guru was saying to him, and so he didn't carry the cloth. So they went down the very narrow streets. If you go in Varanasi, they're very narrow, maybe this wide or so, and they're very tiny. A brick came off the top of one of the adjoining buildings, and it fell. And it fell on the toe of Lahiri Mahashaya. And it started to bleed. And so, seeing that the disciple had not torn off a piece of cloth, he took his own dhoti and he tore off a piece of cloth and he wrapped up his toe to bind it. And the disciple looked at Lahiri Mahashaya and says, "Sir, if you knew that brick was going to fall on you, why didn't you avoid it?" And he said, "Well, it was fate that brick was going to fall on this body." He said, "And if I had avoided it, it would have still had to have happened at some day in the future, but it would have come back with interest at that time." And so it happened. Now the question when I read that story, and the first time I read it before I began thinking, I thought, oh, did Lahiri Mahashaya have karma? No, Lahiri Mahashaya did not have karma. But that body did. But that body was not Lahiri Mahashaya. You see, that body had karma for the rain to fall on it. That body had karma for it to be hot in the sun. That karma had the body had to go through the various motions in life, but that was not Lahiri Mahashaya. Lahiri Mahashaya, it was just an instrument for him to be able to use that body, and he had no karma for that, but the body had to go through, just like what bodies do. They go through youth, old age, and dying. And that understanding karma from that perspective gives us a key to how to understand karma, and how ultimately what we want to do is learn to be able to counteract that karma that is coming to each one of us. Because this is the dilemma that each of us have. What do we have karma. Everything that's put into motion has brought us here today to be able to experience this. But what do we do about it? And what Lahiri Mahashaya was giving the secret here is that karma took place on his body, but he was not that body. He was not that ego. In other words, ego is the soul, which is immortal or eternal, identified with the body. He wasn't that. And so he was not the doer in that sense. And so for us, when we speak about karma, when we speak about reincarnation, we have to understand that, yes, it is a fact, it is a reality, it's something that determines our life. But as Yogananda would say, karma, 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 people keep complaining about their karma. Who was it that created that karma? It was us. And in the same way, because we had the power to create that karma, we also have the power to undo that karma. We have the power to at least to mitigate that power. And the secret in that is given by that example of Lahiri Mahashaya. I am the doer, or not, in the case of Lahiri Mahashaya. There was a disciple of Paramhansa Yogananda. He would say, "Oh, sir," things would happen to him, and he would say, "Oh, sir, I must have very bad karma." And Yogananda would very loudly say, "No, you must understand it takes very, very, very good karma even to want to know God, to want to aspire to freedom, to want to be able to come out of this delusion of Maya. It takes very good karma." Now this disciple should have understood that, because he was a disciple of a God-realized master. What tremendous fortune for that. Now, fortune implies chance. No, it wasn't chance, but tremendous good karma from the past that he had accumulated he had accumulated, and able to bring him to that point in this lifetime that he would aspire to something higher. And so each one of us, the fact that we're even here interested in this subject implies something with all of you. You must have very good karma from the past in the sense of that true higher nature of what karma is, that which is going to take us to being able to transcend that karma and ultimately to be able to achieve freedom. You must have that in order to even be here today, to be interested in it. But Swami, I want to emphasize something to you. Swami Kriyananda once said to us, when somebody was talking, he asked Swami the Kriyananda, why is it, Swamiji, that people come to these teachings? People are interested in spirituality. People are willing to start meditating, and things go on, and then all of a sudden they go. They stay with it for a while, and then they go. And Swami said, oh yes, people come, people go, because very few people have enough good karma to come on to the spiritual life in this life and to consciously aspire to something more in life, to find freedom. They have enough karma for that, but very few of them have enough karma to last a lifetime. Because it's like having an account, savings account in the bank. You use it up. And he says, unless you make deposits, it's going to be gone. And so all of us, but something has attracted us. And when I heard that, Swami say that, I said, uh-oh, I need to invest. I need to become a spiritual investment banker, you might say, to be able to be able to replenish that. It's not enough just to come and sit and spend. You see, we have to also invest and to be able to create that new karma, you might say, that impetus to be able to keep us going. And so all of us are in that same position. We've been given a great blessing to be able to have an interest in the spiritual life, into something higher, to be able to transcend those things that keep us down in this material plane. Even the desire to overcome a bad habit. We have them. But the desire to overcome them is an investment. If you're willing to do something about it, is an investment in a positive direction. Any positive emotion that you put your heart into, that you're willing to direct your life toward, is going to be the best investment that you could ever make. And those are stored for you to come out at the time when you need them. In the Bhagavad Gita, Swami, or Paramhansa Yogananda was commenting on the Gita. He said, and in terms of the battle between the warriors, they blow the horn, or the conch, and the warriors rally to the battlefield. And he said, it's the same thing for us. When we first take those initial steps to do something about our life, either to change our bad habits, or we read a book and we're inspired to take a positive step in life, he says, that's your awakening. Seed thoughts, seed memories from past lives that are awakened and will come to your aid, just like an army coming to the Pandavas' aid down that battlefield. You awaken them. He says, but an army has to be fed, or it's going to leave the battlefield. So we have to feed that army. And so this is what we find ourselves in this battlefield of life. We all think we have tons of bad karma. We tend to look at the bad more than the good, I think, sometimes. But remember, Swami Kriyananda gave a nice illustration. When I was in school, Sergio introduced, I was a major in anthropology, and one of the branches of anthropology that I was particularly involved in, specialized in, and was archaeology. I was an archaeologist. And so this story resonated with me when I heard Swami say, he says, archaeologists go to Egypt and they dig up these ancient tombs of the pharaohs there they reveal them. Some of them have been buried for 4,000 years, maybe 4,000 years. They've not seen the light of day in all that time. He says, but when they open that tomb, the darkness that has been there for thousands of years is dispelled in an instant when that light comes in. And that's it for us as well. The accumulated habits, the accumulated tendencies that have been laying there within us, and we think, how is it possible? How am I going to overcome all this karma that has propelled me in this direction? What do I do about it? The light of an instant, if we let that in immediately, drives the darkness away. And so this is our struggle on the spiritual life, is what can I do to turn on the light? Swami Kriyananda, that song they sang at the beginning was just one of many hundreds and hundreds of songs that Swami composed. And we like to call his songs philosophy in music. And one of his other songs had a line that said, "You cannot drive out the darkness with a stick. You can't drive the darkness out. You can't beat the devil out of you. You have to turn on the light. You open the door, let the light in, and all of a sudden that light comes in, and the darkness is gone." And this is the way that we need to approach, in a positive way, our spiritual life. Yes, we have to eliminate some of those things that keeps bringing that darkness back, but our darkness is merely the absence of light. Turn on the light, and you'll find the darkness disappears quickly, just like that. And so any positive step here at Ananda Sangha, what we do is we teach these techniques and these teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Just a little bit of this religion, as it says in the Gita, will help you avoid dire fears and colossal sufferings, which is what Krishna says. Just a little bit, because it's a little bit of light. And suddenly, it begins to go. Now, when we speak about karma, what we're trying to do, of course, is we're trying to overcome that karma. We're trying to transcend that karma. And I've mentioned how karma revolves around this pole of the ego. As long as we have this idea that I am the doer, this is the theme, of course, of the Bhagavad Gita, until we can overcome that, it clings to us. And so you might say, and this is the point that the masters make. We come onto the spiritual life and we think my job is to overcome all my karma, get rid of all my karma. Isn't that sometimes we hear that? We need to get rid of all the karma. And of course one mistake is, well, if I need to get rid of the karma, I'll just act it out. Well, of course that doesn't work, because as soon as we do one thing, we create 10 times more. And if we think that, we're going to be working for a very, very long time. The secret is to overcome this idea of we are the doer. And this is what in the yogic tradition we call becoming Jivan Mukta, free while living. Be free. Don't be non-attached. Act in this world from your higher self, non-attached as you are the doer, and don't worry about the past karma, because the karma will be there, but if you are in joy, joy is the solution to all of your karmic difficulties. If you're in joy, in other words, if you have the divine presence within you, if you can hold on to that divine presence within you, it does not matter what the past gives you. Look at the lives of the great ones. Look at the lives of the saints. Things happen to them. I mean, you can take the Western saints. Look at Jesus Christ on that cross, or look at the saints who were persecuted, that were beat. There's a nice story from one of the saints during the time of Chaitanya. Could have even been him, but I don't think so. He was walking through a village, and he was chanting God's name. Hari Ram, Hari Ram. He was chanting God's name, and of course the villagers came out, and the young men of the village began to mock him. And soon the mocking turned to throwing stones at him. And pretty soon he was bloodied all over. And he came back to the ashram, and he was totally bloodied. They had beat him, they had thrown stones on him. And the other devotees, the other disciples ran out and said, What happened? And he said, "Oh, I had such a good day today. I went to the village, and the boys were throwing stones. We had such a good time." Now, of course, I don't think any of us would have had that reaction. But you see, how we receive that which comes to us is really the secret of what, if it's karma or not karma. Is it good karma, is bad karma? That which came to him, of course, he was a saint. He was in joy. And if we find ourselves in joy, we find that that's the first secret to being able to deal with the karma. Don't worry so much about it. But I could put yourself in a higher state of consciousness. If we can change our consciousness, and if we can be able to receive our karma in a positive way, then we can find that what seemed like a very negative circumstance has turned out to be a positive circumstance. And hasn't that been the case? There's so many stories about somebody you thought it was going to be disastrous for you. This is disaster. That there was last year, it was all these airplane accidents that happened. Remember the ones at Malaysia and so on. There was always these stories that accompanied those of the person who missed the flight. I was coming back to India 2 weeks ago after I was in America dedicating the Mandir. I won't give you this long story. I see church are laughing at me, thinking I'm going to tell this story, but I'm not. But all I'm saying is I missed my flight. The flight was canceled because there was something burning in the back of the plane, and the smoke was coming. They canceled the flight to fix it. Now, sometimes you hear these stories of a person, they missed the flight. That's bad karma, right? And the plane crashes. That maybe was good karma. What was it? And so we see this. And so whatever's coming to you, you're going to leave here today. And things are going to happen to you. Don't react to them. Likes, dislikes. There's a lesson in everything that comes. And if we can learn to be even-minded and cheerful and be able to accept whatever comes to us, is seeing that this is ours. I am the one who's created this in some fashion. I am the one now who's resolving this. But we can receive it in the same karma, very same. I can receive it in a very different way. A blow is coming to me. If I am moving against that blow, it's going to hurt very badly. If I'm cooperating with it and going this way, it just touches me. It just touches me that way. You know the story? You know the story of the wishing tree? Well, you've heard of the wishing tree, that mythological tree. You sit under that tree, and all of your wishes come true. Well, there's a symbology to all of this in yogic symbology, but let's just think. We have been sitting under that tree. We think, I wish I could sit under such a tree. We're right there now. Because what we wish for, we're putting into motion. We're putting those thoughts into motion by the very thoughts that we have now that will somehow come around through our actions, through what we do, through the attitudes that we have in life. we are sitting under the wishing tree right now, developing those vortices of desires and energies that ultimately will be fulfilled. Every desire, it said, has to be fulfilled, including the desire for freedom, including the desire for God contact. That's the desire which will free us from all desires. And so this is you could say the important, most important lesson from karma is impersonal. It's not good. It's not bad, other than to the degree that you make it so. It's just karma. And that comes. But it is karma. And if we put it in motion, and to the degree that it comes back, how we receive it is going to be how is in our hands right now to be able to receive that. The secret, first secret, as I've said, is put ourselves in a state of joy. Put ourselves in a state of super consciousness or high consciousness. And what comes back to us, maybe it won't even touch us. There's a story in the autobiography of a yogi. If you have not read that book, I very much recommend that you do, where a disciple is accepted as a disciple of Babaji, Mahavatar Babaji, in the Himalayas, great master. And they're sitting around a fire. And Babaji, the disciples, takes a stick that's been burning in the fire, and he takes it and he burns on the arm, one of the disciples. I imagine that would hurt quite a bit. Burns him. And the other disciples are aghast. Oh my gosh, why would you be so cruel? And of course he says, would you rather have him burned to death in a fire that is his karma to happen? He gave him that little touch, you might say, to expiate that karma. Now he was, you could say, in the divine presence of a great master, that disciple was, and so he suffered a little bit. But this is how the principle is here, that that disciple had put himself in the company of the great ones, and that karma was mitigated. So for us as well, we put ourselves, if we have whatever karma it might be, we can counteract bad karma by putting ourselves in the environment of the divine. Either physically, of course, but physically is not enough if our mind is not there, if our consciousness is elsewhere. Yogananda, when he had an ashram in Mount Washington, which is on a hilltop in Los Angeles, and he says, there are lots of rats and mice on this hill, but they're not finding God. Just being there in his company wasn't enough, was what he was saying. They had to attune to that. They had to attune to the presence of the Master to be able to receive those blessings. And all of us here, if we attune ourselves to something higher, we begin to, you might say, create an aura of protection around ourselves. God's devotees are protected if we choose to put ourselves, not just physically, but if we attune the heart so that mentally and spiritually we attune, we create a positive aura. So you can counteract negative with positive. Now, very true too. If you have negative action, positive action should help you. I remember I still look back, and when I was a teenager, I did some naughty things, as teenagers sometimes do. And sometimes I'll be meditating, I'll think of those things, and I'll go, oh, God, why did I do that? And when that thought crosses my mind, it always reminds me that I do something positive, of the other side. Just you might say, instead of waiting for the negative repercussions to come back for whatever those naughty things I did, I take proactive action ahead of time, and I try to put out something, some positive action that might expiate that. But so we counteract and take control of our lives to be able to put into motion that. Now, another thing that people do, and I think this is why Paramhansa Yogananda did not like people to talk about their karma. I have so much bad karma, is people tend to identify with it. That's me. That's my body. And see, this is the problem. We think we're the doer. We identify with this body, so I'm the doer of that karma. I did it. Well, you have responsibility for it. That's true. But who is this I that we're speaking about? So he didn't like people to do that because they make an identification that this is me doing that, and they pretty soon they begin to take on, just because they're thinking of it that way. They begin to take on that identification. He says, so don't think of yourself habitually that way. Maybe my example of thinking of those things as a teenager might not be healthy in that way. But he was saying, be free. Feel yourself to be free right now from the past. And don't call yourself, he would say, a sinner. Don't call yourself, oh, I was so bad. I'm just a bad person. I'm not going to be able to overcome it. He says, that's the greatest sin, to ever identify yourself. Think of yourself as free right now. And if we can think of ourselves as, I'm free right now, we'll begin to attract that. And we'll begin to loosen those ties. Why is it we have all this karma from the past? And it's, of course, this karma from the past is what impels us to be able to work out the accompanying principle that must be considered when we talk about karma. If there is a divine justice in this world, which the masters all say there is, God is not mocked, as it says in the Bible. There's a divine justice. Why don't we see that? We see sometimes criminals succeeding. We see good people suffering. And obviously, and we even in our own life, we see that we cannot work all of these things out in a short period of time of one lifetime alone. It takes more than one lifetime to be able to work out these very, very complex currents of energy that are put into motion by our actions. And Yogananda said that we have been, it takes 5 to 8 million years for the soul to be able to reach the state of the human level. And there's something of a natural progression that takes place. It's you might say, in the level of the animals, in the level of the lower life forms, there's not so much individual karma. He said it's mass karma or group karma. It's the fish in the school of many fish doesn't necessarily have individual karma. He says it's you might say the species karma that pushes them slowly higher up until they reach the human level. But once we reach the human level, we're given a very precious gift. Some people say it's a curse, but it's really a gift. And this is the gift of the ego. We develop that ego consciousness of I am the doer. Now, up to this point, I've said we have to let that go. But it's a gift. It's something because once we reach that level of being given a human body, we have a vehicle by which that soul can ultimately attain freedom from all karma. Animals don't have that. They don't have that ability so much. Now, there might be exceptions. You hear stories and so on. But generally speaking, that animals don't have that. But the human body allows us to be able to attain that divine freedom. It's a great, great gift. Now, I say it also could be a curse because it takes 5 to 8 million years to reach that level, as the masters say. But it's a natural progression. One of the things we're given when we have the ability to choose for ourselves, and this is what ego does. Ego is our ability to make choices. Yes, I'm going to look in this direction or that direction. I'm going to cooperate or not cooperate. Well, of course, you can make good choices and you can make bad choices. And so what you find is that it can take a long time. Yogananda said that there are many souls. They come into this world and they make this natural progression, but by the end of the day of Brahma, they're still struggling, trying to work out their karma toward freedom. It takes many lifetimes to be able to get there because and Yogananda was asked by his disciple Swami Kriyananda, does it always take so long? He says, oh yes, it does. It takes a long time. Why? People are drawn off by one desire or another desire, and they they're seeking their happiness, but this world of Maya is quite strong. And I think we all know that, we can see that. But if it's so, why can't we remember? If we do pass through all of these lifetimes, and this of course was my question when I first thought of this concept, I don't remember. I can't remember. And probably you've asked that too. Why don't we remember? Well, it's said that the reason we don't remember is because we are attached to this lifetime. The soul, remember we defined the ego? Soul identified with body, this personality. And because we're so close, I put my hand here, I cannot see you. I'm so close to it. And it's the same way, we're attached to it. But you find, as you become less attached to the likes and dislikes and to the vicissitudes of life, you begin to gain a larger perspective. And you begin to see life in its longer and larger rhythms. And you begin to look in your own life, and you begin to introspect, and you can see the patterns in your life. The lessons perhaps that you came into this life to learn, the lessons you've, I hope, learned in this life, you begin to see those. And slowly as you disassociate from this lifetime, this body, this personality, you begin to see yourself in a little bit more perspective. And you can see, and you begin to recall. And this is what the Yoga Sutras define the spiritual life as, is memory. You begin smriti. You begin to remember, little by little, who and what you really are. You're not this person and this occupation and this family. You're something more than that. Now, this does not mean that you're not responsible for these things. Swami Kriyananda had a nice way of saying this when he was speaking about the ego. He says, each of us are given. We have an ego. And we have this sense of identity. We have this body. He says, think of it as we are stewards of this body. We are caretakers of this body. We're caretakers of this personality. It's an instrument through which we must work. And as caretakers, we're responsible. It's like we've been hired to take care of a certain household, and we're responsible for that. And so Swami Kriyananda would say, I've come to learn that Swami Kriyananda is just an event for which I am responsible. Think of yourself that. It's a compilation of events and responsibilities for which you are now responsible. You put it into motion by sitting under that wishing tree, and now you have responsibility to take care of it, but in a way that you're not attached to it. And by detachment, we say overcoming those likes and dislikes, all of those emotional attachments to what happens in your life. It's said that if you're highly emotionally identified with whatever happens to you in your life, you accentuate the effects of the karma. But if you can see what happens, to stand back, and what happens with a little to you in life, with a little bit of detachment, it's happening to this body, it's happening to this personality, and to the degree you can see what happens, then it's merely an event happening through you. And if you can see the positive side of it and accept what comes to you as yours, that, Swami Kriyananda would often say, says, that which comes to you of its own accord, and many things do in life, let it come. Let it come. Don't resist it. Adapt to it. Be adaptive to it. Now, obviously, if a car is coming against you in the highway, yeah, step out of the way. Step out of the way. There was that nice story that Swamiji loved, where he was saying the fellow, he was a disciple, and his guru had told him, he says, he says, see, all is one. All is one. All is Brahman. See, all is one. And so the disciple went out. He said, the trees, it's Brahman. Everything's God. And so he was on the pathway, and the wild elephant was out of control and was rushing down the narrow pathway right at him. And the Mahout was yelling at him, says, get out of the way, get out of the way. And the man said, well, God is in me. God is in the elephant. God heard God, and we're all one. So the elephant comes and grabs him by the trunk and throws him off the side and walks down and continues on his way. And his guru comes and finds him. He's all broken up there on the pathway. And he says, my son, what happened? He says, well, God was in me and God was in the elephant, and look what's happened. And he says, yes. The guru says, yes, God was in the elephant and God was in you, but he was in the Mahout too, telling you to get out of the way. So why didn't you listen to him? And so it is. We have to use our common sense. But nevertheless, this is how we deal with our be willing to, in other words, don't reject it. Oh, why is it happening to me? Why is it happening to me? It shouldn't be. Life shouldn't be. It is. Doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It is. Deal with it. And in this way, we then, be a little bit detached from it and do your best, whatever is necessary to do. Now, as I said, karma comes. We have this karma. It's said each of these karmic tendencies or desires or whatnot are embedded in us. It's said to be embedded in the spine, in the astral spine. That if you say there, every time you have a desire, it's a little commitment of energy. I want that. I remember as a child, I wanted a certain toy. And I was always there. I wanted a bicycle, and a motor. Well, when I grew out older, it turned into a motorcycle. So we have these desires, and it's said that those desires are a commitment of energy, a commitment of life force, and they get embedded in us on a very subtle, in an energetic way. And we have thousands, millions, how many? Billions of over lifetimes of just little commitments of energy. And he said because they're energetic commitments, they're deposited in what's called our energy body. And this is referred to as the astral body. It said that the soul, as the yogis explain it, the soul, or that spark of individuality, which we call, the jiva or the soul, it's that spark of individuality has not just this one body, but has essentially three bodies. And the image that is often used is it's encased in a little bottle with a cork on it. And that's said to be first, it's this causal body of thought. And that bottle is inside another bottle, the cork. And that's said to be what's called the astral body of energy, life force. And that has those two, then is inside finally a third bottle, which is said to be this physical body. Now, when we die, what happens? That outer bottle is broken. But it doesn't mean that we're free. Because we still have that little spark of individuality is now still in those other bottles. But this physical body this physical body is broken, it's dissolved, but it's gone for a time. But think of it as this way. Electricity is shining through that bulb here. The bulb breaks. The electricity is still there, but it's not shining here. It's waiting for a new bulb to be replaced. And so you could say that's a little bit like us, is that we're this energy there, and it's in that energy body, of that astral body, which is that energetic body. It's said that all of these little desires, that's where they're deposited, and that is also the realm of the ego. The ego, as yoga explains it, is one of the elements of the astral body. So consequently, when this physical body dies, dissolves, the ego remains, but it retreats. It's in that astral plane. The desires are still there. They're embedded in that astral body. Yogananda explained that when people die, they go through a certain process of dying. Now, most people die, we're not conscious of what happens. They just, you might say, we're tossed from the body, or we're not aware enough, or have not been given the blessing to be able to perceive that which happens. We're just, you might say, evicted from it. Disease takes its course, and we're tossed out. But there are also, if you have more consciousness, awareness of it, you can actually perceive the process that takes place. And some people, perhaps we even ourselves, know people of this who have gone through this process. But the life force withdraws from the body, and it can withdraw from the body in a very defined way. I had a friend, acquaintance, a man that I knew, respected quite dearly. He was a friend of Swami Kriyananda's, and actually was initiated by Swami Kriyananda in around 1960, when Swami Kriyananda was in India for 3 or 4 years at that time. Then Swamiji went back to the United States and somewhat lost touch with this man, but then when Swamiji came back to more permanently into full time in India in 2003, they reconnected again, and the man always wondered, where were you, Swamiji? And anyways, they connected again. A very nice man. His name was Mr. Bij, and I came to know him. He was elderly, and he passed on about maybe 5 years ago. And an interesting story of Mr. Bij is that he was a Kriyaban. He practiced Kriya Yoga. He was initiated. He practiced these techniques faithfully throughout his lifetime. And interestingly, Paramhansa Yogananda made a promise to devotees. He said, to those of you who practice these techniques and these practice sincerely, not just casually, but sincerely practice to the end of your time, and this, he says, I or one of the great masters will be there to usher you across this chasm of transition from physical death into the next astral world. And so Mr. Bij, when he passed, he was living with his family in Delhi, and one day he was with, I believe it was with his grandson there at the house, and it was a boy, and he told the grandson, son, go get the family. My time for leaving has come. Now he was a advanced soul, and to be able to perceive that my time for leaving has come. So the boy didn't know what to know of that. What do you do? And so, but the grandfather was insistent, so he followed orders and he went and gathered the family. When the family came back, Mr. Bij was in the family home and was in his room, and he was lying on the bed. But he was still with them. And he said, yes, my time for coming is good. I want you all to come here, and I want you to sing bhajans, because I'm about to leave. Now, there was no arguing with him, you see. I mean, because it was not that. He stated it. So they came, and they began to sing bhajans and so on, and he was just very peacefully there, and some time passed. And then finally he said, the life force is leaving. It's now left my feet. A little time, he says, it's now left my legs, lower legs. it's now left the lower body entirely. It's now leaving the upper body. And he described that, he said the life force is just going, and they were just singing. And he said all the way until it got to the heart. And when he got there, his last words were just, oh. And he went. Now, isn't that beautiful? I would like to go like that. It said that when the life force, now he was blessed because he was a high soul to be able to describe it that way. But it conformed very much to what Yogananda had written. He says when the life force leaves, he says it leaves the lower body first, and then when it gets to the point of the heart, it leaves the heart, and at that point, the body can no longer breathe. And the blood, of course, the heart stops. And you can no longer breathe. And he says for most people, when that happens, that when it leaves the heart, there's a moment of fear that happens, because all of a sudden you realize I cannot breathe, and you try very desperately to bring that breath back, but you can't, and consequently there's great anxiety often, and if you're not prepared, you might say spiritually. He says typically a person is very anxious and fearful at that point. He says, but it's passing, quick passing. Oftentimes a person will introspect at that time to see the general state of one's own consciousness and qualities and tendencies at that point of dying. And he says it's those tendencies and states of consciousness that will greatly determine the new incarnation that's going to take place. And so as you exit the body, it's important to keep that in mind. Now, it's not so easy through your will to determine what your state of consciousness is going to be, of course, unless you've prepared yourself a little bit. But it leaves, and he says, then there's a great sense of freedom. He says at that point, most people simply go into a foggy state of unawareness. They don't have the ability to consciously be able to pass into the next state. But those that do, they're basically taken and they enter into the astral realms. If a person has some spiritual development and the karma for it, they enter into that astral world in a conscious way, and they enjoy that conscious realm of the astral world for the length of time that their karma will allow them to be there. People often, it's in that conscious state of being in the astral realm that people can fulfill some karma there. Typically, Swami Kriyananda said that the typical desires that might be fulfilled there is a desire for beauty, a desire for wonderful music or pleasant scenes, or desire for harmony. Those types of things can be fulfilled there. But, he says, in time, you'll find that karma runs out, and then a certain reluctance comes in over the individual, and they realize that they have to come back to this world. But for souls that are seeking soul freedom, souls who in this lifetime were seeking moksha, it says often those people don't stay long. They don't want to stay long in that world, because it's in this physical world that karma can better be worked out. And so for those who really want freedom, they'll stay maybe a little while, but they want to come back. And when the time comes, a propitious moment arises in a good home or a good circumstance, a good karmic family, to be able to come back and continue one's own journey in a positive way. At conception, Master said, Yogananda said, there's a flash of light in the astral world, and souls who are in tune with that are drawn to it. And he said there's even competition for that amongst high souls, because oftentimes having those, the best birth circumstances are not always available. Now, I think this is something to keep in mind, the lesson here. And I'd like to tell a little story first, though. There's a story of a soul who was a great soul. And he had done such good work in this world. He had done such great service. He had lived a good life, a saintly life, that an angelic being came down from the high realms and granted him the ability, appeared before him and said, your life has been so perfect that you have been granted the boon to be ushered up into the astral realms, consciously ushered up into the astral realms. Let us go. And the saint said, well, hold on one moment. He says, before we go, I would like to ask you a few questions. Well, the angel said, well, this is very strange. Most people don't ask anything, right? They just want to go. He says, well, yes, I understand. He says, but it has been my experience in life that this life is duality. For every good, there's a negative. Now, I would like to ask you a question. I understand the astral realms are very wonderful, so I understand the good, but what is the negative side? Well, there must be a downside to this as well. And the angel says, well, my man, you're very strange. Nobody has, I don't think, ever asked me this before. And let me think. He says, well, I must say to him, there is one thing that I have to tell you. Once you go to these wonderful astral realms, there'll come a time when your good karma is exhausted. And you will at that time have to come back to this physical world. And there's a little bit of pain at the prospect. You'll begin to suffer at that prospect. You'll have to come back here. And the saint said, my God. He says, that's such a colossal negative that I can't imagine anybody who would want to accept your offer. And he says, I reject your offer. He says, let me stay here on this world where I can work out my karma and be able to attain that freedom that much more quickly. Now, interestingly, in that story, I had mentioned earlier how Swami Kriyananda said, yes, most people, they come into the spiritual life, they have a certain amount of good karma, but it runs out because they don't invest. Well, it's the same thing. We can have a nice life here, but on the next plane as well, that karma too runs out, and we have to come right back here. So for a person who wants to get on with it, you might say, get on with this journey of why we've come to this world itself, why not get on with it right now? Because this is what we really want. We want freedom. And this world, although it has all of the obstacles, all of the seemingly difficulties of what karma, we say it's bad karma, these are actually opportunities for us to be able to accomplish that. And so if we can learn to embrace it and see in that way, we realize that wherever God has placed us right now is actually the best place for us. Interesting. One of Yogananda's disciples said, if you cannot find God in the spot where He has placed you, where do you expect to find Him? I don't want to be here. I want to be there. I want to be there. I want to be there. Until we learn that, no, where I have been placed, through the divine, through my karma, whatever it might be, this is the place that I must start, from the spot from which I must start my divine quest to go forward. And this, if we come to that understanding, then we realize that this is my karma and I embrace it. And I embrace it and I'm willing to do something about it. Now, I'd like to share a few tips of how you might do this, but I'm going to look at my watch first, my clock, because I tend to go long sometimes. Okay. I think I have 15 minutes, don't I?
If you want.
Oh, I have to ask permission from my minder here. A couple of tips. I wrote a few things down I wanted to share. As I said, I need to make these short. Actually, are we taking a break after this, and then you're going to?
We'll have questions.
Okay.
Once you finish, then we'll take a short break with tea and some snacks, and then we'll come back for a workshop on some.
So we're going to come in. During the workshop, Sergio is going to go into these things a little bit more depth. So I'm just going to touch. I'll just touch on this, and then Sergio will go into these a little bit further. If I could give you a few tips, the first would be live as to the best of your ability right now. Live in joy. Joy is the answer. It's not, we think, I want joy. I want joy in the future. I wish it would come to me. To the degree that you're wishing, what are you doing? You're making an affirmation that you don't have it right now. I want peace. Yes, I want things to be nice. I want to be calm. Well, you're just affirming you don't have it right now. You just don't wait. Affirm it right now. Live in joy right now. And I say that because if it's true that we want to face our karma, we want to deal with the difficulties in life, the best way to do that is to uplift our consciousness, and then we find that the difficulties that come to us, if we receive them on a higher state of consciousness, we will perceive them very differently than if we were to receive those on a lower level of consciousness. For example, something comes to you. If you're joyful, if you're calm, if you're peaceful, something happens, you say, okay, whatever. If you are angry, resentful, hold grievances, and that same event comes to you, you're going to react in a very different way. And because of that, your reaction to whatever comes to you in life is going to determine the karma that you put into motion. It's your reaction to life that sets the karmic wheel rolling for something coming back to you. So that to the degree that you can react to whatever's happened in the past in a positive way, you are going to minimize that karmic bondage to that. And you're going to put into motion something positive. Everything, as Swami Sri Yukteswar, Yoganandaji's guru, said, the past lives of all men are dark with many shames. Everything in the future will improve if you make the right spiritual effort now. And the right spiritual effort that he was speaking of was to uplift our consciousness into a higher state than it's now. Lahiri Mahashaya again, he says, for any problem you have in life, Kriya Yoga is the solution. Now, why did he say that? It's because through the practice of Kriya Yoga, we change our consciousness. We uplift it, and we put it on a higher level, and the world looks different. When we have joy in our hearts, peace in our hearts, and we can do that. This is what yoga is about, is to change your consciousness so that life comes and you act appropriately. Yoga is defined by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras as the neutralization of likes and dislikes, the waves of chitta, likes and dislikes. I like it, I hate it, I like it, I hate it. And then that reactive process puts into motion the waves of karma, you can say, egoic karma, attachment. We need to neutralize those. But things happen to you. Notice that when good things happen to you, well, you like it, right? But I notice that people tend to react more to dislikes than they do to likes. It's pleasant. Oh, okay, that's great. But when they're unhappy circumstances, the reaction is more. And I've noticed that if you can learn to, whatever happens to you, accept it calmly and neutralize the dislikes rather than worrying too much about the likes. I think if you just watch the dislike, don't. So consequently, as a very mundane example, somebody gives you, says, "Oh, would you like to have lunch?" "Oh, yes, please, I'd like to have lunch." And they give you something you just don't like it. Eat it, and don't bother about it. Don't dislike anything that the cook serves to you. Now, by cook, I mean the divine cook. The divine chef is serving us something. And what do you do when you're at a guest house? And this really, we are guests here in this world. When the guests, the host, the hostess, the lady of the house, the divine lady of the house serves you a meal, you say thank you. And you be like that. Don't dislike anything. Accept it. And try to even like it if you can. And then but you notice, and so you don't have to worry so much about the likes. You're going to do fine with those. It's the other ones. And so consequently, and in little things that happen, the fellow cuts you off in traffic. Don't bother, don't react. Don't react to it. You didn't get the job. Okay. Try again. And try to neutralize that side, and you'll find your life becomes much more pleasant. And you become more pleasant at the same time. Meditation is what we teach in Yogananda Sangha. Meditation dissolves the vortice of ego. And I see Shurjo's coming down the aisle here, probably with the hook. But meditation dissolves the ego. And okay, Jivan Mukta. Now this is a word. Jivan Mukta means free soul. It means this is our goal in life. Swami Kriyananda used to tell all of us as students, he says, don't worry about absolute freedom. Become Jivan Mukta. In other words, overcome the ego. Transcend ego consciousness, the sense of I am the doer. Yes, you still have karma to work out from past lives. Who knows how many lives it might take. But if you're not attached to it, what does it matter? What does it matter? Live in joy. Live in joy. And that's your first goal. Become free, so you're not creating more karma. You see, don't create more. The past will take care of itself. And again, see life all life is a lesson. Life has many things to teach us. We have to be students to be able to receive those lessons. Same thing happens to two very identical people. One learns, the other doesn't. Why? One wants to learn, one's open to learn, being able to receive the lessons that come to us. And I'm going to stop right there and allow Sergio to come up or do whatever he's supposed to do. And then I think we're supposed to have some questions here, right?
I'd like to open it up 10 minutes to questions.
Okay. So, and do we have, you're going to have to, because I forgot my hearing aids, and I'm not going to hear what he says. So, but yes, that was a question right there. Maybe if you speak loudly, I'll hear it.
My name is Steve Nana. I just want to know the relation between the free will, faith,
and
and the karma. I'll paint one in the
free will. Yeah, okay.
There is a 2 minutes, 1 minute.
Yes, I understand. I understand.
There are 2 cars are parked. One tree fell. The car got damaged. Another chap came and drove down the car. He was drunk. He went to the next. Now, in these 2 cases, one is the car got damaged. Another is by free will he went and damaged his own car.
Yeah, I understand.
So now, where is this karma? How is getting
Yeah.
I understand.
This, he has asked the essential philosophical question that philosophers have been asking, and perhaps you too, because we're all philosophers on some level, have been asking since time immemorial. The essential question, what is the relationship between free will and karma and destiny, let's say fate? Do we even have free will? Now this can be answered in many different ways, and it's not rationally answerable to anybody's total satisfaction without you taking it and meditating perhaps for the rest of your life, on this question, because it's something that has to be experienced intuitively from inside. But nevertheless, let me try. Paramhansa Yogananda said, do we have free will? Yes, we do. Is our life determined by karma? Yes, it is. So the answer is yes and yes. Both apply. Now, as long as we are identified with this body, in this ego, and our perception is from ego consciousness, we see ourselves as having free will. We think we have free will, and we see life from the perspective of having free will to the degree that we are in this body, this personality. And as such, we must act with that free will and use that free will and strengthen that free will to act in this world in such a way to free ourselves. The primary thing that we use our free will to act on is in what direction are we pointed. In other words, we can make in every moment, infinitesimal moment of thought, am I looking toward the light, toward freedom, or am I looking toward greater bondage? The larger question is, what is right action in this world? Every moment we have, to the degree that, like, animals are not really conscious of making conscious right action decisions. They just go by instinct. But when we have the ego and the ability to make choices, we choose. Do I want to go, what's right action, what's wrong action? And right action is that direction of action in our life that will take me in the direction of freedom, of unbondage. Wrong action are those choices that are going to bind me more tightly into the egoic, selfish self. So we have that choice of which direction to point ourselves in when we're in the body embodied by the ego. Now, from a cosmic point of view, once you have transcended ego, the ego doesn't disappear. It still remains, but you are no longer identified with it. Yogananda said it very nicely in his poem Samadhi. He says, I, the cosmic sea, watch the little ego float in me. He's now transferred, the saint transfers his identification to the cosmic, to the absolute. And he sees the ego acting. From that perspective, karma, you have there the free will. That ego it's karmic action, reaction taking place. So as long as we're in the ego, we must, and as long as we're bound, we must abide by the rules that apply to our situation. So yes, we do have free will, but on the cosmic, from Brahman from outlook, it's something else is applying. Yogananda said it very nicely also. He says, think of yourself as on a train. The train is moving, and you're on but you have the ability to walk to the front of the train or to the back of the train. But the train is moving in its own direction, and you're riding on that train. So when you're on the train, you can be thinking, you're moving in this direction, but there's something larger going on of which you're unaware at that point. But you have to work with the tools that you're given. So yes, you have to act. You have to act. As the Gita says, there's no possibility for non-action. Inaction is impossible. You must act. So as long as you must act rightly. Act rightly. Doing what is the right thing that's going to take you in the direction you want to go. Now, meditate on that, because intellectually you cannot explain it, but intuitively you understand it. Now, another question. Yes, sir.
Starting with good karma and bad karma.
then you travel to consciousness. We concluded at mentality. But when we become born, society has given us glasses, specs, this is good, this is bad. Every moment we jump on it. We try very hard. When we see people like you, when we see people, when we go for success, when we meditate, we are a different person. But when we are in society, we are totally different person. So how we can synergize these things?
Now, are you really a different person? You're not really, I don't think. But yet, yes, other things, other realities come out. We have to. Whatever we come to satsang, we sit in our asana, we meditate, we feel wonderful bliss, we feel joy, and then we go out and we lose that, and we're out in society. Other things apply, but we have to be able to transcend that difference and bring it in, so that there's not a dichotomy between our life in the world, our life with duties, our life and our spiritual side. We have to integrate those two and bring those two together. There can't be, and this is. I hear sometimes people will say to me, because I've been involved in the yogic path, serving on the sangha in this fashion for a long time. Let's just say that. And people will come to me and they'll say, "Well, this is all very fine, but how do you deal with situations when you go into the real world?" And I object to that. What is the real world? I think I live in the real world. I think that person lives in the fantasy world. And our real world is the world of our spiritual life. That's reality, not these things that allow us, we think are real. They're not. But yet we have to make that transition. So the meditation, if you meditate, if you have a sadhana daily routine, that is only the beginning when you sit. You're not going to be successful until you learn to take what you gain in your daily meditation, your daily sadhana, your daily puja, your aratis that we do, that feeling, that of upliftment, and be able to recall it at will in every situation of your daily life. We can't make that. We have to transcend that separation. Now, I don't know if I actually answered your question, but that's the idea, that the thought that came to my mind. One more question. I see you have your hand up.
We'll let this be the last question. And during the break, you can
Like, as you described, to get deliverance by good karma. And by good karma, the deliverance, we go to some higher world. But after the exertion of those good karma, we again come back. What is the aim of this circle?
Well, okay. I didn't really complete that, did I? Okay, then. You come back, we come back again, and again, and again, and again. I could go on. And again. Yogananda said, we come back again and again until we become aware of, and it turns into an agonizing monotony. Until finally we just want to get out of that. And the getting out of that is to break that bondage, that other bottle, that bottle of the ego, is to transcend the ego, and so no longer, is in the Gita it would say, no longer I am the doer, I am the actor in this world. To be able to transcend that and see that it's happening through me. This is an instrument, that I am not attached. Action, nishkam karma, action without desire for the fruits of action, to be able to be in that state of action. Then we can act in this world, but it doesn't bind us. At that pole, action binds us to the degree that it revolves around this pole of ego. This is when we want to become lahiri. We dissolve that ego pole So that action happens. Karma happens. Because karma is the law. It will happen, but it doesn't stick to us. There's no pull for it to bind to us. So any good, like a saint, such as Lahiri, any of the great masters, they act in this world, and karma accrues. Good karma, because there's only good karma at that side. But it doesn't accrue to them. It accrues to the world at large. It accrues to the disciples. It accrues to society as a whole. So if there's, I forgot to talk about mass karma and group karma, but which there are. There's individual karma, there's group karma, and there's mass karma. So let's just say a country too has karma. India has karma. Europe, a country, and each of these countries, they have karma too. Germany had karma. And countries make karma and accrue karma. But any country, this is if we want to truly be patriotic, if we love India, let's say, or America, where I came from, we truly love it. What is the best thing you could do? Become a saint, because the aura of a great saint is protective. You're protected, and so any country that can produce a saint has a great protection to it, because it's a mass karma, you might say. And so this is it. Anything you want to, if you want to truly help your family become saintly, and you create a positive aura, because negative, you can have negative aura. If you want to protect yourself, create a positive aura. Now, how to create positive aura, I'm going to leave it to Sergio, or else I'm just going to keep going. And he'll come back in a little while and maybe answer this question further. Okay?